What's your read on this Brady Hook defense?
Aggressive. You know, it's aggressive defense, and he's been a career D-line coach. You know, or had his hand in the D-line for years. So pretty aggressive, pretty front-centered. You know, a lot of tricks with the front, twists and blitzes and things.
Is it odd when they make such a big change defensively the first year or two, when maybe they recruited to a different scheme? You see some guys who are in sort of weird places.
I don't think so. I think you can pretty well plug them in. You know, find a role for a guy, and they're a real talented team, of course. You know, so. But I think no, I don't. You know, and plus they're multiple enough. They're doing some of that same stuff anyway. So, you know, they can give you a lot of fronts.
They've been maybe a little more like what Falk saw last year in terms of playing man. It seems like you guys have faced more zone this year. How do you think he's adapted to that?
It's similar. I mean, you just do, you know, depends what they do. I mean, we thought Boise played more man than they did, and they played more zone than we expected, but they played both. I think these guys will play both also. So I don't think there's a real distinction. I mean, there's definitely a distinction in the coverage, but as far as once you address what they do, I mean, you try to have something that gives you some options in either man or zone, and you know, but they try to bring pressure, so you got to operate quickly.
It doesn't change where his eyes are while he's going through his reads.
I mean, so the simple answer to that question is no. You got your priorities and the stuff you go through. The complex answer is, well, you know, it's going through each play and, you know, and going through all the coverages and going through this, and then of course they're going to settle some routes, run others based on coverage, and and then of course that's an all-day answer. Shoot, they give clinics on that stuff. You go sit there. Some of the clinic speakers are good and some are terrible, but generally pretty good. And shoot, those guys will go all day on that stuff. And of course, you ask questions and write down all the stuff you think's important, but generally no.
So much talk about your team getting tougher. Is that something you can only see in the games, or can you see that at all during the bye week?
We had a lot of energy in practices. You know, we're practicing pretty good. We had a lot of energy in practices. I have been happy with the way we've been practicing. Now we've got to transfer it to the game. You know, I thought we had pretty good practices in camp. I didn't feel like we transferred that as well as I had hoped. I thought last week a pretty good job, or, you know, last game, a pretty good job. A little bit of a slow start. So I'm optimistic about this week.
How does it change the way you guys look at Oregon, whether or not Royce Freeman's able to go?
Well, the other backs are good too. I mean, it really doesn't change anything. I mean, they're going to run their plays, and the guy's going to come flying to the hole as fast as he can to get as many yards as he can. Freeman's a really good player, but in any case, we're going to try to have people there and tackle him. So, I mean, you know, it doesn't change a lot. He's a very high quality back, you know.
What are your thoughts on having the bye week this early in the season? Luke mentioned that he believes it came at the perfect time to sort of reset everything entering Pac-12 play.
You know, it's kind of when most people try to have it. A lot of teams try to have it. You know, you take them as they come. You don't have much control over it. A lot of people like to have it before you start conference. They like to have their bye week before they start conference. I've always felt like the bye weeks were best when they were 2/3 of the way through. But, you know, I mean, it's kind of when everybody's shooting for it. They don't always get it there, but they shoot for it there, you know. So, you know, but I think it's fine. I thought we had good productive work. You know, I mean, some people think it's perfect. Some people would like it a little more halfway. And my thought is, you know, get more games in than rest up as you're down the stretch. But in any case, the very worst is if you have it the first week. The second worst is if you have it the last week, you know, where it's not a bye week. It's just all packed together. So.
How have you seen Eric Neely grow as a coach from when he sort of showed up on your doorstep to now in his third season as the special teams coordinator?
Does a real good job. Brings a lot of energy. I think that, and we've been playing very aggressively on special teams. We've been able to block some kicks. Our kickoff cover is very aggressive. You know, and I think that he's gotten better and better. You know, there's a lot of moving parts with special teams. I mean, you coach more people simultaneously at the same time. Frank Gans used to actually go out there with a bullhorn. And that was part of the best show of practice, was watching Frank Gans's drill. He'd go out there with a bullhorn, had kind of a distinct voice, not a real big guy. But I mean, just command the whole team. I mean, whatever NFL team he's on, I mean, they're running all over the place because, you know, I mean, it was pretty clear that if you didn't respond to that bullhorn, besides the fact it was really loud, he was fully prepared to get on your ass. And then, and he also did the ball security drill too, the strip the ball drill. But anyway, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people going a lot of different directions. I think it kind of takes a special kind of coach to do that, but then the assistants all pitch in, and he's real organized as far as assessing how it went, and then, you know, then he grades the whole drill and gives them his evaluations on each of the segments of it. I think he's done a really good job, and I think we're getting better too as we speak.
Does he seem more likely to try things now that he's been doing it for a few years, or maybe has better athletes running some of that stuff?
Yeah, but the one thing I like is he's not reckless about trying to do too much, you know, having all kinds of adjustments, having 30 adjustments. I mean, anything in football's got to be based on execution. It's you're only as good as you can execute. All the smart ideas in the world are a complete waste of time unless you can execute them, you know. So, yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing. And I think he does a good job of keeping it simple and, you know, within the framework of what we can execute.
Is there any difference between how you prepare the team mentally for a conference opponent versus a non-conference opponent?
No, not really. I mean, there shouldn't be. I mean, the biggest thing should be you should, you know, it should, in the purest form, it should just be football. I work as hard as I can. I play as hard as I can so I can improve. And if I do that over and over again, I'll continue to improve. And if I do that over and over again, I'll be pleasantly surprised that I can do something that I couldn't the day before, and then so it'll continue, and I'll be as good as I can possibly be. And if everybody does it together, you're as good of a team as you can possibly be. And then, and that's really the ultimate goal. And so then, who you're playing is kind of irrelevant, you know, because you should be trying to make the most of your skills and your ability that you can, you know, for, among other things, improvement, which is probably the most important thing. And then, you know, and then you kind of, I guess, non-conference, or the first 3 games is where teams change and change the most and improve the most. And so then you try to diagnose and address the problems and things, and then we iron everything out, become the best you can be.
With that said, do you notice a change in mentality or a difference in your guys at all with conference season starting this week?
Yeah, maybe. I'll know more tomorrow, but we've had really good practices. And we've been on them, and we've hammered them, and we'll continue to hammer them, and the hammering won't stop until after the bowl game. So, I mean, so I guess from that standpoint, you know, we want them consistent, so we're going to try to be consistent.
Was there more hammering this week than in a typical bye week?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, I would say, I mean, I've kind of settled on how I do bye weeks lately. You know, I mean, there's 3 ways to do it. One is you work them like crazy and burn their legs out, which I don't like that. And then the other is you give them the whole week off, which I'm not comfortable with that. And then the other is you try to get some recruiting in, and then load it up towards the end of the week but get good work in, which that's what we did. And I did think we had good work, so I thought they did a really good job.
One thing Luke mentioned, that the team really took away from the win over Oregon last year was the resiliency. How have you seen that carry over from last year's group to this year?
Well, I think our group has probably thought a little too much about last year than they should have. I mean, we need to focus on us and this group right now, you know. I mean, that was great for last year's group, you know. That was all the guys last year that either made or did those plays. That wasn't any of the guys this year. I mean, there's some of the same people, but this is 2016, you know. I mean, if they go in a time machine or Captain Kirk or any of that stuff, hell, they're going to miss the whole thing by a year, and the Klingons are going to kill them all, you know. So they better think about that and focus on this year. Otherwise, it won't be a productive, happy experience.
You had Shalom's back throughout this kind of pizza process. Satisfying to know that the prosecutor's not going to press charges?
Yeah, I don't have any comment on that. And I think, you know, just I don't have anything to say about it. Well, you know, we'll just let it unfold, and I hope justice prevails on this stuff.
Coach, I don't know if you caught a lot of the Pac-12 games this week, but a lot of really close games. Oregon loses to Colorado. What can you just say about the parity in the conference this season? I don't know if you knew much better entering the year, but it looks like already in week one it's starting to be pretty even.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true. Our conference is a little tough to decipher. Some of it can be some new faces at quarterback, I guess. I mean, we talk about the same thing that you presented. I mean, I don't have a good answer for you. Yeah, it looks like there's parity, and it looks like you know, teams are battling to emerge and do some good things, and some will for sure. There's no question. And but yeah, there's our particular conference. There's more questions than answers right now.
In the game against Idaho, you guys had over 200 yards rushing. Can we expect to see more closer or a larger amount of rushing this game, similar to what we saw against Idaho?
Well, we're going to try to have 400 yards rushing this game. I don't know if we'll get 400, but we're certainly going to try.
Would that be a record under Mike Leach?
I think it'd be a record under a lot of things. I think, and in particular, I think it'd be a record on most yards per carry.
Any questions on the line for Coach Leach?
Hey Mike, it's Flo. Do you feel like teams are defending you guys differently this year at all? Just, I mean, for example, Luke said last week against Idaho that, you know, they kind of dared you to run. Do you feel like people are doing that more?
No, not really. I mean, they have from the beginning. Like when we first got here, you know, it was nearly embarrassing. You know, teams would stick 4 guys up there. You know, they're and even in some cases 3. Here's our 4 or our 3 on your 5. Try to run the ball, because you know we were obviously limited in offensive linemen, and we were small besides. Well, and then if they could break even on that, well, shoot, they'd have 8 or 9 back there covering the pass, and then and that's honestly all they needed. And now our offensive line is improved, so now they typically need 6 in the box to adequately stop our run. Usually, I mean, we'll see, but and they don't really stray from 5. So. No, that's not anything new. I mean, and then there's always the back and forth of this many are coming forward, this many are going backwards. It really isn't new at all.
I see. And also, I noticed Keith Harrington hasn't really gotten into a game yet. It's just a matter of him reacquainting himself with inside receiver.
Yes, among other things. But we're excited about Keith and are sure he's going to have a fabulous season. So.
Okay. And finally, I couldn't really hear Jacob's question, but the Whitman County prosecutor has decided to not charge Shalom Zawani. How do you feel about that? Does this give any credence, I guess, to what you were saying last week about, you know, the cops and your players?
Well, I don't have anything to say about it. I'm just rooting for justice to happen on all fronts, you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mike, what was your reaction when David Yost left for Oregon, and have you seen any of his imprint on the Ducks to their start this year?
You know, I was happy for Yost because he wanted to coach quarterbacks, you know, and obviously that's a kind of tough at our place. And then, so I was happy for him and his family, of course, that he got the opportunity to do something he wanted. But I thought he did a good job here. He's a very organized guy, and you know, it's a little tough to see specifically. I mean, because no matter who was coaching, they got a new quarterback, and you just kind of wait for a couple chapters of that to reveal itself, and so you kind of get a read on things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the line for Coach? Okay, back in the room.
Is there any rhyme or reason to why the team has been coming out flat in the first quarter? And as a coach, is there anything that you can do to try to remedy that or figure out ways to get them going earlier?
Well, we've been messing with that a lot, you know. I think that, you know, the biggest thing is you know, I think that you got to not make too much of things or minimize them, either one. I mean, it needs to be like Tuesday or Wednesday's practice. You know, Tuesday and Wednesday's practice, we don't come out flat, and you know, we come out fast and all that. So you know, I mean, if you know, if they're not fully respecting an opponent, well, that's unforgivable. You know. And if they're making too much out of an opponent, well, they got to be tougher than that. You know, I mean, what we're shooting for is what we did in practice, and the reason we didn't practice all the time is because we thought that was the important, best way to do it. So, you know, we'd like it to look a lot like Tuesday and Wednesday's practice.
You mentioned Prukop, Oregon's quarterback. I don't know if you were asked this last year, but where do you stand on the FCS transfer rules, and do you think that's, you know, positive for players and teams? Just the fact that someone can transfer when they become a grad student.
Yeah, I guess I don't care. I mean, I think that, well, I mean, what it is essentially is a reward for a guy that graduates, you know? I mean, why not? And then the other thing, I think it's, I honestly think it's more of an award and sort of a motivation for a guy to graduate quickly. But then the other thing is, I mean, it's obviously, there is a practical reality to the thing that, you know, if you want your degree in something or other, other schools may offer a better opportunity with regard to whatever your graduate degree is. However, I don't think graduate degrees and what the particular subject is factoring into this equation very much at all, almost none. But I don't have any problem with you know, hey, you graduate, now you call the shots, you know. I mean, keep in mind, we're in a business that people keep calling for, you know, 18-year-olds to get paid a bunch of extra money and decide on everything and get all kinds of marketing fees and everything else because, you know, since they have a good 40 and a good bench press that they're an expert on, and they're now professionals, you know. And you know, so I think that you know, that's a nice little step there. You know, I mean, you got your degree, you decide. So I think that's good. And so.
Any other questions for Coach?
So in the past few weeks, or in the past few games, there were some problems with penalties. Do you think you've been able to help stomp those out a little bit during the bye week?
I don't know. I hope so. We'll find out.
Stream question of the week. Easy one. What's the best book you have read lately? Not to be the last book, but.
Oh. That's best book I've read lately. Well, you always have to exclude the Bible because that's unfair advantage. It's kind of like when they say, and I never like these guys, you know, if you could have dinner with any one person, who would it be? And then, oh, Jesus. Well, no kidding. Really? You know, I mean, yeah, you'd have the inside track on damn near anything if you did that, wouldn't you? So, I think the religious stuff you gotta take out because that's, you know, that's too elevated. Well, I got a good friend of mine, Jeff Benedict, sent me a book on Steve Young that I'm excited to read, and that he wrote on Steve Young, so I'm excited to read that. So some of that's a high level of optimism, but I've read some of Jeff's stuff before, and he always does a tremendous job. So I'd say Steve Young by Jeff Benedict.
If you could have dinner with one person other than Jesus.
Well, it would maybe be Geronimo, given the fact I wrote a book on him, you know. And to tell you, it's hard to narrow it down to one, so.